Our first review of the day is going to be for the film Civil War. Civil War is the newest Alex Garland film and possibly the last Alex Garland film. He said after this, he's done. He's done with filmmaking after this. He's possibly going to retire. Just lost the passion for filmmaking. Alex Garland started off as a writer. He wrote the 28 Days Later series there. Then he went on to directing. He directed Ex Machina. He directed Annihilation. He directed Men. People feel very positively about his movies. I love Ex Machina. I think Ex Machina is very good. I think Annihilation is good. Men, I'm mixed on. I get people. A lot of people kind of hate Men. Some people like it. I'm mixed on it myself. And with his previous work there, with things like Men, and seeing the trailer, we did a trailer reaction for this movie. My thoughts was, how is he going to kind of handle, this, especially a movie titled Civil War, the politics of this, given what he did with kind of Men. And I remember, I think it was an interview he did, and it was kind of like, so what the interviewer asked him, so what is the meaning behind Men, and what was the thinking behind it? And he's like, I don't know, it just looked cool to me. I don't know, I don't. It's like, why did the guy play the same person in all the roles? It's like, I don't know, it just seemed cool. I like him. It just seemed like a cool thing. So it just seemed like maybe he would struggle with some depth here as far as tackling some more serious subject. That's what I'm kind of afraid of here. And we're going to discuss whether he kind of handles the topics going on in this movie well or not. So, what is this about? So, it's a dystopian America that we see here, set in the kind of the far future, maybe 10, 20 years. You see that there is, as the title suggests, a civil war going on in the country. We see kind of a dictator president kind of going on, played by Nick Offerman, who we see little bits and pieces of, and little information is sprinkled about him. And you have these journalists, these four journalists here, who are sitting on a road trip to Washington, D.C. in order to interview the president, in order to, ask him some tough questions, get some answers there. And one of the main journalists that we're following is a character, Kristen Dunst, who plays Lee Smith, who is a renowned photojournalist. They're very heavily respected in this world that we see. People know who she is, especially a young admirer by the name of Kaylee Spaney, who's the actress who plays Jessie. Kaylee Spaney, people might know she was just in Priscilla. She was in that film, and she was also in The Bad Times of the El Royale as well. And Kaylee Spaney, they're very much a big admirer of Kristen Dunst's character, tags along on their trip there. Other people you have on the trip is also Wagner Amora, who plays Joel there, and you have Stephen McKinley Henderson, veteran actor Stephen McKinley Henderson. People might have seen him. He was in Dune, the first one, there before. He's been in things like Fences. Very very good character actor. He's been in plenty of stuff there. Wagner Moore, he was in Narcos. He played the Pablo Escobar in that as well. And we just saw him on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He had a guest role on that show there, the Amazon Prime show as well. So that's kind of the crew there. So that's kind of the plot of the movie. And then as they're doing this road trip there to DC, you see them encountering all these different pockets of the United States, all these kind of different sentiments kind of going around there that you see. I know, Kenny, you uploaded your video about Civil War. I didn't get a chance to see it before the review, but I'm going to pass it around, get you guys' thoughts. What are your thoughts on Civil War from Alex Garland?
So Civil War is a movie I thought was well acted, well directed. Cinematography is incredible, as well as the sound design. I thought the sound design in this movie is possibly like a contender for a nomination for best sound. I thought the sound design was disorienting, purposefully so. And I think that it was done in such a way where you would feel like you're actually in the war zone. So all the technical aspects of this movie I felt were incredibly well done. Where the movie loses me, though, is the characters that we're following throughout the entirety of this story. I don't care about any of these people. And I feel like I feel almost bamboozled in a way, because I did watch the trailers beforehand. And the way that it presented itself, I thought that we were going to get more into, even through the eyes of the photojournalist, I thought we were going to get more into the whys, the hows, and how we even got here with the Civil War. And I felt like a lot of the Civil War aspect of it wasn't explored enough for me while I was watching the movie. I'm watching a few characters who are essentially seemingly apolitical to this whole thing. I know that they're photographers, you have to be desensitized, and you're kind of looking at it from a point of view where my job is to take the photos, not necessarily to tell the story. I don't care if it's somebody on our side who's dying. I don't care if it's somebody on their side who's dying. My entire job is to take these photos. And for me, I felt as though the film, I felt as though Alex Garland, what he did was he served us up a platter of here's a bunch of events that have happened. Make of it what you will. For me, though, I already come in kind of knowing what I feel about certain political things, but I want to hear about your opinion, Alex. Like, Alex, what do you have to say about this? I may disagree with you, I may agree with you, but have an opinion. And I felt like the movie lacked an opinion, and so there's nothing for me to latch on and take away from it. I don't, like I said, I don't enjoy films when they're kind of just like, I don't know, man, just up to you. It's like, no, no, you got me here. You put out a trailer. The trailer said it's about this. Well, when the trailer says it's about this, or it seems to be about this, well, give me that. And I felt like I wasn't given what I had came to see. So for me, I like I said, I thought it was all the technical things about this film are incredible. Where and to finish, where it loses me is on the actual story that's being told. So that's kind of where I left the movie feeling like I looked at an hour and some change of some pretty pictures, and some great sound effects. So that's kind of where I left off.
All right. Dusk, what about you?
First of all, I wholeheartedly agree in almost everything you said, Kenny. Absolutely. On a technical scale, this movie is very well done.
Yeah.
There's no argument there. I think some of the cinematography moments are honestly just beautiful. I think he captures a lot of moments very well. But that's all there are. They're moments, just in a vacuum. They're just small interchangeable moments that I could swap around, and there's nothing connecting them. There's no through line. There's no like character or gravitas holding it on an emotional or even just a narrative level to kind of keep it together so it means something. It's just, here's a bunch of events. Do we, especially for a bunch of characters, we follow these journalists who we really don't get to know any one of them aside from their resume, what they've done, not who they are. It's very mechanical in a way, and it may work in a more this could work in like a book format. You could write a book on this and be a very objective view on the events on it. But then when you start doing that, the movie has its problem, because for characters who love to talk about news and argue and discuss it, we're never really given any concrete details. How did this conflict start? What does anybody stand for? Who who are the sides that we picked? How did they come to be? How did California and Texas settle their differences to make an entire like the Western Front alliance? They ain't never gonna happen. You got to give me a good reason why these two opposites would come together. Big enough, like you can do that. You just got to explain that. But the movie's not really interested in that. It's more of, here's the scenario, let's go. Yeah. But when you do that, I'm kind of left with just empty events, and I'm emotionally kind of pulled back. But I'm snapped back in the few moments where you are hit with an event that really does sync with you, or you do see bloodshed on your homeland. That's just naturally going to be like, going to get you in the gut. But it only goes so far. And especially when we ratchet up towards the end, when the whole point of this story kind of gets let go and we're just following along now, I was almost kind of like, I don't even care what happens, because you guys just aren't, I got nothing here. I'm just a fly on the wall, and I didn't even ask to be here anymore.
Yeah. Damn. I wanted this to be a real civil war. I thought we were going to disagree. I thought there's going to be some good tension here. We could have a real civil war. I guess not. Because I agree with you guys. So, this is from A24. A24, big film production company there. They've done a lot of
Mhm.
great works. They did recently come out and say that, hey, we got to start to lean more into doing a little bit more blockbuster type movies because we can't keep making these art house indie movies and not having a good return on them. And we need to be
Mhm.
able to make our money back in order to keep the lights on here. And I think this is, a good kind of attempt at doing a art house blockbuster type
Mhm.
film here.
Mhm.
Because when it comes to, as Kenny mentioned, when it comes to the action sequences, they are really well done. The visuals, the
Mhm.
cinematography here, the sound here is really good. This is a $50 million budget here, so it's a little bit more on the expensive side of an A24 film than they've done,
But they
before.
used it very well.
Yeah.
Used it
That
really
was
well.
used very well. So many times you would see this would be like a $180, but no, like everything on like the destruction felt. No, you could do that within your budget. No, you could do this, but it says enough and it shows enough without it being.
Hmm.
It just, yeah. The problem just comes down to everything that's kind of around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, to Dusk's point about some of the characters. So I think you got a good cast. I think the performances are solid here. I think that they just kind of feel like types. Kristen Dunst says,
Hmm.
her character, she feels like a type of, she's the veteran, who's seen it all, war
She's the
torn,
hardened veteran.
war-torn photojournalist here. Stephen McKinley there. He's the guy that's past his prime, the older guy there. Is like, why is he even still doing this? You have a guy, and then you have Kaylee Spinney, who is she's the kid, she's the rookie, she's the wet
Hmm.
behind the ears person there, who, what I mean, she has to be guided along and then given life lessons throughout it. Um, and then you have the Wagner Spinning, who's the Joel character, who seemed like he kind of represented more of the, I guess the high, what I mean, of like doing this job of like, why would you even continue to kind of do this in this kind of, why don't you, would you do this job? But the high of being in these high intense situations of being like right next to the firefight of people doing it.
Hmm.
And also, yeah, it's like in, as you guys mentioned, in this kind of effort to, almost say something, it or try to be maybe apolitical or not maybe point fingers at anybody or one side, it kind of chickens out and doesn't have the balls to really do or really say anything important here. And like, for
Yeah.
instance, like you have the like this that came out with the movie, the map here, of like,
Yeah.
this is the civil, like, what was the point of this map?
Yeah,
You know?
we all these alliances never go at all.
They're
It's just
never
window
explored
dressing.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lore of this world. What's kind of the lore of this world? You see kind of little tidbits mentioned
Mhm.
here and there of things. And I'm not saying you have to overly explain things, but
Sure.
immerse us, really in this world of like what's going on. Like, why do these press people, why can they shoot from this one side? Can they shoot from other different sides as well? Is it like
Right.
only one side they can shoot from? It seems like. So that's a thing. And I get that from them, the protagonist of this movie being a photojournalist and not even like a journalist that writes actual columns or anything like that, that you're just documenting, right? You're just
Right.
showing what's happening and you're just observing. You're not meant to, really have any
Right.
opinion on anything. You're just supposed to observe.
But there's no
And
internet for them to upload any of this.
that's also another thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
because they mentioned that earlier. Oh, internet's kind of so you got to give me. You're not even anyone who's supposedly to read any of this or be in contact. They're not going to know anything because the internet's down. They're not going to upload it anywhere unless you are pure for pure documentation and pure. I got to make sure the story of all this isn't just erased.
Right.
Which I could be on that, but I need real drive on why someone would be crazy enough to go into that kind of a war zone. And I also felt if they're going to have a map like that to show all these different territories, this should have been a coast to coast road trip.
That as well. A lot of it takes place right on the East Coast. And it's like, well, what happened to the Texas and California thing? Like, so that was just a soundbite essentially. And I'm like, oh, well, if we're not going to explore that, then,
Why'd you
and
have it?
also like another one of the things I was just curious about was,
Mhm.
okay, so all of these territories are like they synced up or they clicked up with different states and things of that nature. but the Civil War seems to still even be like an interstate thing. So if you have all these territories, like you have the loyalist states, which is essentially where we spend most of our time. Well, you have the loyalist states, then with even within the loyalist states, you have different factions who are trying to take each other out. So what's the point of having these different factions and the Western forces and all these other things if none of this is going to really matter at the end of
Right.
the day?
Like
Mm.
if they were doing a coast to coast, I'm like, oh man, we got to briefly go through the Western Alliance real quick. That's all
Right.
this, and then we can dip into like the Texas area and the Loyalist, and then we can slip into the we got to go through the Florida Alliance, and then we can get to the Loyalist states again to get back on track, and then maybe like it's not a spoiler for a movie, but what if they then said they got heard over the news or the radio? The Florida Alliance and the Western Force Alliance have agreed to like a mutual agreement to take down the Loyalists, and they've like it's like oh crap, now
Yeah.
we're in and these states have agreed to secede to like join, and now it's a reduce the amount of loyalist states, and we're no longer in no longer in safe territory,
Yeah.
ratcheting up stake to get to this point. But it kind of has it ends up just being you go to a destination, somebody gets shot. Go to another destination, somebody gets shot at. You go to another destination, somebody gets shot. And then you go to the end where it becomes a Call of Duty campaign, except I can't hold the controller, and I
Yeah.
wanted to play Modern Warfare 2 or Battlefront, honestly, with that great atmosphere. I could just play Battlefield 3 or Bad Company 2.
Yeah.
The other interesting part of that, when you go to the place someone gets shot, is
Mm.
who's getting shot.
Right.
Like it's like 90-10% like minorities. Like
Yeah.
every single time, like whether they're being burned alive or they're being shot at, or someone's like hiding behind a post and they're being shot at, or there's two gentlemen from another country
Right.
who like. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and all seems to, the focus always seems to be on the minority character gets killed. Now, I know I'm not trying to do like the super woke thing, but it's just something I noticed. Like, oh, there's a lot of black and brown bodies just dropping, and
Yeah. And a lot of white bodies get dropped, and they're just like, eh.
yeah,
Yeah. So it just when they do these things, like you said, and it seems like he's trying to make a commentary about certain things. Like there's a scene where they go to like this little town that's completely isolated from everything, and
Yeah.
they're talking to this woman there who's working at this store, and they're going like, "Yeah, I just kind of stay out of all that stuff." There's a literal war zone like
Yeah.
outside your front door there if you just walk by
Yeah.
a little bit more.
right,
And like, but even then, it's like, okay, what are you working for? Like, what's
Yeah.
the economy like? Like,
Yeah. Thank
yeah,
you.
like
I'm like,
who? I mean, because there's a scene where they go to a gas station and they're like, okay, they're trying to do regular money, but then they're like, okay, what about Canadian money? But then that seems Canadian money, I guess, is better now than the American dollar. So it's like,
that's kind of
what?
interesting. That's kind of like, oh well, how do we barter? Do you have something to trade? That don't mean nothing down here. We're in the middle of like sandwich. That doesn't
yeah,
mean anything. So do
Yeah,
you have something to trade? Hey, we got food, but we don't have this.
right,
It goes back to being barter town. Yeah, why wasn't there more? They know they got to cross this distance. Like, so we got to make sure we have some supplies. We got to hide some because we got to use that to barter, or we're willing to do a job or deliver something on our way.
hmm
Kind of play with it. I
yeah.
think this concept would have worked if this was a limited miniseries.
I totally agree. I had a friend who actually said the exact same thing. I didn't think of that, but when he said it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Let it be like a one season limited miniseries, one and done, and just proof of concept.
Hmm.
yeah. I was talking to Marley, who's been on the show before, and
Mm.
he's talked to him about it, and he kind of also thought a little bit less of the movie, and he was saying it's kind of like Alex Garland watched the Purge movies and then kind of doom scrolled on Twitter, and then he
Right.
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, he came out with this. Um, yeah, I just think that it's just like, the kind of the more explanation of kind of what's going on, and what I mean, the sides, and like, there, and you could even, you don't have to make the events of what's going on here modern day politics. You can make it something new. You can come up with a new concept there for people to be fighting about or people to
Right.
be arguing over. And clearly there is a bad figure in this movie because the president in this is presented like a bad figure of what he's
Hmm.
doing, and then you do have that.
Right.
So
But what
it's,
did he do?
well, they said that he's on his 3rd term, and they say
Right.
he disbanded the FBI, and they said he
Right.
drone strike civilians there in the country. So he did
Right,
that.
right. How did this escalate to that point?
Yeah.
How did we get to that area?
Those are the
What made
questions.
him make that decision to do all these things and then took everybody so long to then do this? Where were the checks and balances? How did that fall through? Like, also,
Yeah.
the Secret Service is going to be one thing, but why would I could tell you this right now, there'd be many Secret Service members that would just go, nope. Like, my loyalty is to the country first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like, the president can't just do things like that without. That's why we
Disband
have a
the
series of checks and
FBI was
balances.
another thing.
Oh, we
Mhm.
say Kenny.
Yeah, disband the FBI was another thing. I was kind of
Yeah.
like, okay. And honestly, like I know it's an alternate reality, it's an alternate future,
Right.
but the idea of like if you're trying to make this realistic and something for us to grasp, the idea of someone getting a third term, I don't care what political side of the aisle that you're on, that's never going. I would hope, but that's never going to happen, no matter
Not
what.
without a fight.
Yeah, and you would like something serious would have to happen for that to take place because I don't
Mhm.
think either side of the aisle would even consider allowing that to happen. We don't.
No.
Yeah,
Either side wouldn't care. They'd be like, "That's illegal. We're not allowing that to happen. We will
right.
go to the Supreme Court, which is the third party, to just, yeah, it's unconstitutional. Can't happen. You're
Yeah,
kicked."
Yeah. But I mean, there's some scenes. I mean, good tension. I think the Jesse Plemons scene. He's in this.
It's by far the best moment.
It's
yeah.
good tension. There's a lot of good tension in these moments when they go kind of these different places, and you feel that of like, oh, what's going to happen, and so I
Hmm.
think that's kind of well played out.
It
Um,
reminded me of what it could have been if this was a like mini series and the little vignettes you could have had in that moments of tension and characters coming in and out of their lives. And
Right.
these characters seem so objective about things that they're like, oh, like the camera guy, he has oh man, there's some action. I can't wait to see some action. And then he sees it. Oh, didn't that give you like such a rush seeing people just die? Wasn't it amazing? And then
It's
something
weird.
happens to him and them, and he's like all sad. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, didn't that all like
yeah.
And I think like the even like to the point of the Jesse Plemons thing, right?
mhm,
It would have landed better if part of that discussion and that dialogue was him being loyal to the president.
yeah,
But he just there was never a connection made between that. So even the sides have these sides that aren't a part of those other sides that you presented, and it's kind of like, okay, so what exactly? Who was fighting for what
right.
specifically?
Right.
You never really get that.
The
Yeah.
the only one that made the most sense to me, and actually made the characters were falling complete idiots, when there's just two guys, they're all pinned down by a sniper, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, who is he fighting for? What's this? He's like, he's just shooting at us, and we're gonna try and kill him back because otherwise we can't leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's a like, all right, and, like he looks to like the other character. What is happening right now? It's a shooting. There you go. Like it doesn't matter what. Like that's the most concise this movie ever got. It's like when someone's shooting at you, you really don't have time to ask certain questions.
right.
But that's the
Yeah.
only time it really works because it's such a small moment. The loyalties kind of drop. It's just it doesn't matter. We just got to make sure this guy doesn't kill us.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
know,
we're
hey.
not doing spoilers, are we?
No, I don't think unless you guys wanted to do, we could do and go into spoilers. Do you guys want to do spoilers?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Well, why don't you guys give your ratings and then we can go into spoiler talk.
Sure.
Yeah.
So for me, I gave this movie a 3 out of 5.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like I said, it's technically really well made, but it drops because of the lack of story. And honestly, it could drop even further in that. And I could see someone dropping it further than that
Mhm.
based on what they look for when they watch a movie. So for me, like it was well acted. All the technical things are great. The story's not great, but it's also not the worst movie I've seen this year. Like not by a long shot.
Oh no, no.
So I can't drop it down to some of those other things that have come out.
Okay. So for us, so our scale is the way I rate it is the best thing you've ever seen. So best thing, great thing. This is cinema. Then below that would be a peak. Then below that would be a tune in. Then below that would be a stream it.
Mhm.
Then our terrible rating. So the worst thing you can give something is waste a fucking film. Then after that would be Burn It, or Skip It, there, or Tune Out would be kind of our negative ratings there. But yeah, so it sounds like 3 out of 5. That's a tune in on our scale. Give it a
Okay.
tune in there. And what about you, Dusk?
I'm gonna give this a stream it. A low,
Okay.
kind of
That's
like a
kind of
mid.
closer to where I like if I had your scale, I'd be like, stream this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I view on our scale, I view 10 out of 10 as this is cinema. That's the way I look at it. Peak is like an 8, between an 8 and a 9. A tune in is like a 6 and a 7. It's like, hey, it's worth seeing in the movie. And then once you get to 5 and below, it's stream it. 5 is like the median. If it's just good enough, it's stream it. And I just feel this is just good enough. It's a stream it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would kind of give it more of a lowish tune in for me. I still think it's good to maybe see it in theaters. I think it, like I said, the sound is the visual, the technical aspect of this movie is good.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
That is good. There's no doubt about that. I think that works all well. But a lot of the story elements there of like trying to do this movie. I mean, the movie's called Civil War. How you gonna do a movie called Civil War? You don't explain what the fuck Civil War is about. Like,
honestly, it doesn't really matter.
It's there. It's like I mean, you might as well you could have had any real world war.
It could have been an insurrection.
She could have gone to Russia and Ukraine. She could have just could have taken a real war and just.
I had the exact same commentary. I think
it actually would have been better.
You could do this literally anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's the point of having it in the United States and it being a civil war? And then, like, what's really the point of that?
This could have been Wolverines too, Electric Boogaloo, Red Dawn too, man.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys a question based on that. If this movie wasn't marketed as Civil War, if all the title wasn't Civil War, would you feel differently about the movie? Because that's something I've been thinking about since leaving it. Like, if this movie was war photos or whatever title that they would come up with, and you were like, the whole purpose was you're following these war journals through this thing, that is the purpose of this movie, and that's how it's marketed. Would you feel differently about
it? For me, I mean, I get the thing of like journalism and then the importance of journalism, the importance of documentation. I think I see that, and I see that, of being, like I said, photojournalists who just document, of seeing that and everything. But in doing that, I'm like, okay, but what's really being documented other than, okay, war is bad. Okay, we know war is bad. War sucks. But what else you got?
I would have appreciated. They said the main plot is they're going down there to interview, without going into details, to go and interview. Why aren't they interviewing other people while they're going down there? They're making a documentary. What's your side of the story? Why did you get involved? How is this going? How did this happen? So that they can document. No voice is destroyed. So that the creme de la creme at the very end, whether they can get there or not, it's like okay, before we go into this area, let's preserve what we have, because we might not make it out of there. So let's save what we got and just not risk it all on the biscuit,
So Kenny, you kind of gave it more of a stream it. That's how you're feeling about it.
Yeah.
Dust streaming as well. I kind of gave it a lowish kind of tune in for me. There. So if people don't want to hear spoilers, we're gonna get into spoiler talk there. Come back there later on. But so here we go. 3, 2, 1. So Captain America came out and he threw his shield and then he, beat up the president. So what happens here? So at the end, so they make it all the way to DC, but when they, of course, on a road trip, not everybody's gonna make it. So you have McKinley Henderson's character. He died. He got shot, and then he bled out there, which causes a big shift in kind of the personalities there of like Kristen Dunst and then the Joe character. Did you think that made sense? Them having like that big of tone shift, because it seemed like Kristen Dunst like almost is so now disinjected from just like everything after the death of that character, and it didn't seem like she was like that super close to him.
No, she made fun of him a lot.
So like, did you think that made sense, like that character shift there?
It was interesting because in the scene where they're finally going to go infiltrate the White House, and she's having an emotional moment, she's crying, she's doing all of this, which if you've known somebody for a while, I guess that would make sense. But in this situation, it was more distracting than anything else. Like, I'm trying to focus on them getting into the White House and the battle and what's going on here. Is Jesse going to survive this situation and all this? And then you have Kirsten Dunst over here crying and stuff like that. And it felt like you were trying to do a lot of different things at the same time. So it kind of messed with the flow of the film at that point. And even like with Joel, like his character having such an emotional reaction. I don't know if I'm remembering this wrong, but as soon as they get back into the war, he's like, "Yeah, aren't we like kind of happy to be here again?" And it's
Mhm.
like they're so inconsistent in the way that they're doing this. And if I could, one other thing was like when Sammy dies, and they're like, "Well, we did all this for nothing." They're going in. We're not going to be able to get what we came here to do. And then the next scene is them going to get what they came here to do. What
Yeah,
are you talking
exactly.
about? So, so I don't understand where those things got lost in the shuffle.
There are many points in this movie where they jump cut or things are told to us that we should have seen to really sell us.
Hmm.
Even from the very beginning, I was like, I got an "oh no" vibe from it, where they early at the gas station they meet. He's like, "Oh, how do I look? How does this look?" Cut. I didn't know he was gonna. He's like, he was gonna kill these guys. I'm like, I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
Like, you could have skipped that conversation. And yeah, with Joel, I'm gonna be honest. His friends show up out of nowhere. Two characters we really didn't meet until that moment, and they're
That's why I
literally
was
there
actually
just to
going
get
to
killed.
spoilers. I was like, I really want to talk about them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they literally just show up to die.
Yeah.
That's it. They were literally added to this area to die, and then the only one, like, you could have not had that and it be Sammy. He rescues them from the situation, or they're people that they don't know, but they're still trying to risk their lives anyways. For would have been the same amount, and it would send the same message too.
Hmm.
Um, it's just there are many moments that you could have said the same thing and done it better, but I'm trying to wonder why you went that way to say it in that manner.
Yeah.
It feels, but things also feel like they're cut out of this movie too. It does feel like there's many moments where you're like, okay, there's a lot cut out of here. Or we're just kind of gluing this, and we're just going.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
feel the same way. Like when Joel's friends show up, like I'm thinking that, there's some tension coming, or I mean, eventually it does. But I'm thinking they're coming from the friends. But would they like everything that they do in that sequence leading up to Jesse Plemons is stupid. Like the chain exchanging in from truck to truck, the one driving off, you think like, oh, they have some kind of thing that's going on. And the thing that in the where you think the tension is, it's not. But when I realized, like, oh, so that wasn't the problem, like them exchanging trucks and somebody driving off. When I look back at it, I'm like, why the hell did you do that? Like, for what? Especially when you're in this war torn situation, it just seems like all of that, like, it felt like you had to get the character to do something dumb for them to get to the Jesse Plemons thing. And the dumb thing they did was extremely dumb. So it lost me on that.
Yeah, it
yeah.
would have been far more organic if A, those characters didn't exist, or B, they come in and they just get shuffled in with a bunch of other people. Like, oh no, we're press, and they just look down at it and they go, who?
Yeah.
And they
Right.
Uh,
just don't care. They're like, I could give a crap who you are. What kind of American are you? Like that whole conversation is great. He does it so well. It's great
Mhm.
tension, but it should have been other characters, like other characters around it. It's like, and then you start seeing they have bodies, and it's like, how are you going to get out of this?
Right.
yeah.
Like, again, it's a good setup, but or at least the setup in that moment. But how it gets there, you're like, what? Why are they so? Why do they do this? Why do they normally put themselves in dumb danger just to do this? Aren't they supposed to be professionals?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And then also you think about the whole journey of their journey here to Washington to interview the president. As like from what we know, it says like this guy kills journalists on sight. So why would he answer your questions? And then even if you do answer, like he does answer your question, you're not going to really get probably much for him anyway. So what's really the point of this trip? Really, I
Mhm.
mean, really, when you
Yeah,
think about that,
yeah.
um,
I was dumbfounded when that was the plot. I'm like, what? to get an interview where guys like, oh, they kill people on site, well, then the discussion is over.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
Like, look, you could be like Lois Lane, super journalist, doing way too much work for the amount of money she gets, but you're going into war-torn areas. If anyone, like, unless these characters legitimately has a death wish, or they have a really big reason, and it's not about just it's about getting everyone else's interview and seeing where this goes and letting this be
Mhm.
filmed and let this be documented. And I'm on board for that, just to never let this be lost, never let this moment be forgotten, because it will be. And I think through experience, the horrors of war, that if I had been there, no one would have ever said a word, because it wouldn't be anyone left. I mean, that would be important. That would be more thematic, but
like if the president, like, he's about to nuke everything, and then
yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Or even like, he doesn't have to nuke anything. He could just use his like thermodynamic missiles and still do a crap ton of damage to DC. He could just go, I'm in a super bunker. I'm just going to destroy the entire area around me, and we'll cripple America for the next 200 years,
Mm.
or at least the next 50 to 60, as we try to rebuild and pick the pieces. But
Yeah.
this guy could be a guy. Or, there was also that moment later where they came to surrender. Hey, we're openly surrendering. We want guarantee of a like talk or whatever. They got the building surrounded. He's not going anywhere. He got no backup. It's over. He got him to the wall. It should be over. It's like, okay, we'll
Yeah.
get out. It's like, you're surrendering. I want you to broadcast. Like, we're going to broadcast from this point here. Open surrender. These are the terms, and we've agreed to it. But instead, they're like, no, we're going to get to them. I'm like, how is that any form of military of any form, or even just what? And you're all just documenting. They're going to show this over, and you just committed a war crime.
Well, I mean, should everybody commit one?
I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying after the fact. I'm just saying during it just doesn't make any sense. And you just send that woman out alone.
And that was my whole thing about like the black and brown bodies. You had the two Asian gentlemen, you had her, you had the guy who was standing behind the post,
Yeah.
like trying to get rescued from his friends. You had in the beginning the black guy who's in that tire being burned alive. I'm like, hey guys, like, why is every horrifying image like of some minority dying? And it always seems like this doesn't seem necessary,
Yeah.
that it always has to be a minority. So yeah, that was something that especially when the press secretary died, I was like, what are we doing?
Yes, that I felt the same way. I was like, what are we? What's happening here? What's going on? This was a moment where the movie could have turned and been something really interesting. Can you imagine how it could have gone instead of like, doing what they did, which is he went out and he actually had the interview at gunpoint and it was over.
Yeah,
What interesting last minute, like, now that the charade is over, like, try to explain the situation in a long documentary. Like, that actually would have made it interesting. He's like,
Yeah. Even if
it's like,
he did end up dying in that moment because one of the soldiers had just had it, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
they couldn't
fine.
control themselves. But at least allow him to speak and
Yes.
get to this journey and them get what they're looking for. Especially
Also,
with Kristen Dunst dying.
Oh yeah, and they just like walk away. They can give two craps.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like, they're robots. They have no emotion. He just looks over at her dead body, who he's freaked out over his friends, and clearly he's known her for just as long. And he's just like, no. Then she just stands up. The other character, she just stands up, Jesse, and he just gets up and just ghost walks towards it. And they get to the president. He's like, no, don't shoot him. I want a quote. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
And then the quote wasn't even that.
No, he's like, please don't let them kill me.
Right.
That's good enough for me. And I'm like, no, whoa. And then they did, like, and as soon as that happened, I'm like, I'm done. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
That killed it for me.
And when they do the photo of like showing through them, I thought that was good. Like when they do the photo stuff and then capturing the, I thought that was
I thought that was well done.
I thought that was done. But and then you talk about the very ending of this. So they make it to DC. They follow the whatever group, I guess Western Front or whatever group they're with that is, basically sieging the White House there, gonna bust in there, gonna get him. They do that. They follow them in there, and then Kristen Dunst's character, she, in the effort to save Kaylee Spaney's character, her dumbass, she goes right in the middle of the in the hallway she pushes out the way and she ends up the one being killed. She gets shot by the Secret Service.
So
Yeah.
stupid.
That's like the
Which
second time Kelly Spain's character had done that, like within the
Yes.
15 minutes, right?
Yeah. Repeatedly, actually. She's like, we're so close. We're
Uh-huh.
so close to the story. And I'm like, get your dumb ass back here.
And he
Yeah.
told her, like they told her before, like, stop it. She did it again.
Even the soldiers, like, I'm actually surprised the soldiers goes, if you don't stay back here, I will put you down myself.
Yeah.
Because they seem kind of they seem loose in the head at that point, pissed
Mhm.
off. Where it's a
Uh-huh.
I will put you down, I swear to God, if you put us in danger.
And the movie heavily, foreshadow. I mean, you could kind of probably guess
Yeah.
what happens at the end. Like you could probably guess what happened because it heavily foreshadows it with the whole stuff of their conversations, and their stuff of like, hey, if you ever died, would you photograph me? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And do that. They kind of heavily say, oh, okay,
I
yeah,
actually thought that was well done. I wasn't sure which one of them was going to die, but I thought that was well done. But the more we talk about the movie, the more it
execution.
feels a little bit more meaningless to the whole thing because there was no real point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the point of saying like, because I mean, Kristen does, like I said, at the beginning of the movie, she has this very cold demeanor, of like, that's just, I'm getting the shot. That's all I want. I want the shot and then
Mhm.
document things. And I mean, she does have, I mean, not everybody. I mean, you said there's no sense of like, they're almost apolitical. They have no real political views that they express that much, that the four of them. I mean, a
Right.
little bit with McKinley Henderson's character, like he expresses a little bit more outward anger at the president and everything.
Mhm.
Um, but really, everybody really, there's no real sense of their political leanings. But with Kristen Dunst, I mean, she did say that in a, one of the many, McKinley Henderson, kind of like, I mean, hell, you talk about that movie Magical Mystical Negroes. I mean, maybe they should have delayed that until after this movie came out. It's like they would have had a good example with McKinley Henderson in this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
with him where he's sitting there and talking to her about, yeah, it's like, I documented these things so that people could see and that it could never happen here. You know,
Mhm.
so you do kind of have this. So she does have a certain feeling about war, about kind of what's going on here that you kind of see.
It's true.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so I don't hate the movie. I mean, some people I can see some people I see some people loving it, some people hating it. I think will be a divisive movie, not really because of the politics, just because of like, I guess just either you're really gonna like it or maybe you're just really just gonna kind of feel kind of meh or kind of
Yeah.
kind of shitty in its message there. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm more meh on it than hating it. I'm never going to watch it again, but I also don't feel like I need to like rant and rave about it every time it comes up.
Yeah.
That's
I
fair.
still think his best movie is still Ex Machina. Alex Garland, I still think that's his best movie there. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any final words there, Dusk?
Nah, I just at the very end of the day, I just I kind of shrug about it.
Mhm.
It just didn't live up to the potential of the topic.
Correct.
There's so many ways it could have gone. I would have rather be in the you could have had a journalist character in there, a war term veteran general, veteran who's done this and seen bad things, but you could have followed a squad of just. I would have rather been like, hey, I had to enlist because there's a civil war going on, and you're in the boots of a normal everyday person who now has to fight in a civil war. I would have been much more interested in that. How
Right.
does an everyday person see all this gore and death and destruction and trying to defend their homeland from other kin, other people? That would have been much more of a. Also, it would have also probably bridged a bit more on a, like, at the end of the day, we're all Americans anyway, so like, why are we killing each other?
Yeah.
It would have been much more. But again, by being objective, he ultimately says nothing. By being so pulled back and not really meaning it, he ultimately says nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree. At the end of the day, what I said in my review, my conclusion was, but why though? And that's pretty much how I feel about this movie. This movie, it came, it's going to went. It came and went, and I'm going to move on to something else.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of there. So, that was our review for Civil War there.